Hello and welcome to another episode here on Captain's Dry Dock. And in the dry dock today, I'm making an auditory sanitizer? What the hell's that? Well, I'll let you know as I'll make it so. This is an indulgent project for myself because soon I'll be going to Vancouver, Canada, and so I need to pack all my toiletries. Now, I wanted to make a container for my cotton buds. Hey, they're called Q-tips, John. Yeah, I know, Q-tips. And so I needed to protect those because I wasn't going to take that great big container which contains all those cotton buds for travel, and it'll get smushed up, and also they absorb water, so I needed to protect them. So originally I used a toothpick container to look after my cotton buds, but I thought, hang on a minute, I'm a designer and I'm a fabricator. Let me make one for myself based in the Star Trek world. But as we all know, there's no such thing as bathrooms, toilets in the Star Trek sci-fi universe. Okay, Star Trek Enterprise did feature heavily sonic showers, but that was more for sexual reasons. But they didn't have anything to indicate how they looked after themselves, like any containers. So I thought, let me make one for myself.
The design starts with the humble cotton bud. The brands in the UK are usually a similar size, so it means the case will be universal. And it's with these measurements I can design the case around. The design needs to relate to the sci-fi Star Trek world of clean lines, simple surfaces, and being aesthetically appealing. After hours of looking for Star Trek props of a similar size I could be inspired by, I found the answer right in front of me, my iPod case. I always loved this design, and it fits the overall look of the Star Trek universe, which begs the question, will Apple design dominate the 23rd and 24th century?
So these are my favourite tools so far. This is my Elegoo Saturn and Elegoo Mars 3D resin printers, and the yellow thing at the back there is a queuing station. Now if you watched my channel before, you know that I swear by this stuff. A water washable resin. I say water washable because majority of resins out there, especially when 3D resin printed started getting really popular, it wasn't water based or water related. In fact, you had to buy this stuff as well, alcohol, to clean off any residue of those models, which is okay. You get the same results. However, it stinks to high heaven, and also once it gets saturated with all the crud and nasties, as you can see here, then eventually you're gonna have to get rid of this and buy some more. However, with the water washable, you can just get some free water, but you have to make sure you can dispose of it in a safe way. However, with props, they're inherently, shall we say, prone to damage because they're going to be handled, they may be dropped, and if I tell you the truth, as I was printing out this case, I actually dropped it and it cracked because the resin is incredibly brittle. So I needed to find a resin that wasn't so brittle, and I went online and I found this stuff. ABS-like resin. So it's not exactly ABS as you get in a car, but it has the same properties, meaning it's got a little bit of flexibility, not too brittle, which means it will look the same. However, it's got properties about it, which means that if it is dropped or mishandled, it's not going to crack or break so easily. So far I've used this already and I really recommend it. But I also have to buy alcohol to clean the residue off.
For the design, I'll be using Fusion 360, starting very simply by extruding the square into a 3D block, rounding the edges, round the top and bottom for the iPod case look, and then hollow it out and using the cross-section function to see how it looks inside. Now, no Star Trek prop can go without clear labelling and the Delta. So for this, I popped onto Google to find a suitable Delta logo that isn't specifically linked to a spin-off from the show. So I just need to copy and paste this into Adobe Illustrator with the choice of tracing, but I'm going to be lazy and I'm going to use the automatic trace function, which turns an image like this into an editable vector, which then needs a little bit of cleaning up. Now I make my boundary that represents the space that I've got to play with, and then paste it there with a few little extra Star Trek-like details, such as the text. The Star Trek font, of which I used two different versions, I got from a free font download site. Now I've popped that link down below in the descriptions for you to check out yourself. Then it's the case of typing out the relevant text. This design is imported into Fusion like a model decal, and then I choose what should be extruded or embossed to give it that impact. This also has the added function of behaving like Braille, so if Geordie LaForge doesn't have his visor, so he can feel and read what's inside that container. After adding a split in the middle so it can open, it's time to send it to print. For this, I used my Elegoo Saturn resin printer rather than a filament printer, as there was a lot of detail that needed to be crisp without the issues of a filament printer of having layer lines that need lots of sanding and filling afterwards. After curing the resin, I found the inside still sticky due to the UV light not reaching those spaces. So, top tip, I bought a UV torch, the link is in the description, which let me manually shine the UV where it needed to be cured. However, although it looks good, the tolerances weren't tight enough, which meant that the two parts couldn't hold together on their own and easily fell apart. Also, aesthetically, the middle seam cutting for the text looks so ugly and will give any graphic designer a nasty taste in their mouth. So, back to the drawing board. This time, I thought it would be so cool to follow the seam of the delta and give the two parts an unusual shape. This time, I tightened the tolerances and added location holes for tiny magnets to get that special little iPod case snap and sent it back to print. This design already looks miles better and the tolerances were almost too tight, which I had to adjust with a little bit of sanding. Then I got the 4 strong tiny magnets and superglued them into their locations. Now I had that iPod case satisfying click. I had to do a little filling and sanding due to the removal of the resin supports, but then it's ready for paint. First, I hit it with 2 light coats of grey primer and left it to harden. As the final finish will be silver, I always lay down a light coat of black for metallics. Then I hit it with 2 coats of the same silver I used for my Star Trek phaser prop. If you want to see that video, go to my channel and check it out, or just click on the link in the descriptions. For the livery, I attempted to use my Warhammer figure painting skills and painted with a brush, but the slightest deviation from the raised detail stood out like a sore thumb. So I opted for masking and spraying, which delivered a perfect manufactured effect. The difficult part was to work out how to paint the embossed text. So I lacquered the entire case, which allowed me to brush on the paint all over the text without staining the surface. And while it was still wet, I wiped it off with a tissue, which removed the excess paint but left the rest of the paint in the crevices to dry.
This project really opened up my mind and actually producing design and props that aren't actually canon or featured in a film or TV series that you actually love. In fact, it really opens up your imagination to actually produce props which are sympathetic to the design of how it could fit into that world, which was a fantastic challenge. And I think I did quite a reasonable job, and I can imagine this could actually be in an episode of Star Trek, or I like to think so. Not that you really want to see a Ferengi cleaning out their ears. So this was kind of a strange episode because this was not a canon prop, but I really hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you want to see daily updates of what I'm working on currently, then if you go to my TikTok and Instagram accounts, you'll get daily updates and also hopefully make you laugh as well. But in the meantime, my name's John Child, I've got clean ears, and I'll see you on the next episode on Captain's Dry Dock. You take care.